Think of most AI products, they're very powerful, but you have to tell them what you want them to do for you. We believe in federated data as much as possible. So actually, like when you connect your email to Town, we don't go and download all your emails and re-index them, right? Services, whether they're AI or SaaS, that don't offer good building blocks around like search, I think are going to be in trouble because agents then won't be able to work well with them. I'm a painter. I like to paint. I don't want to learn how to code. Like we were talking about Lovable, like we were talking about like vibe coding. I want to know which human throat has caused the bad or the good thing to happen. Prize is 1 billion knowledge workers. And the kind of simplicity that you have to get to and the ease of understanding of the product, it's a little bit like what the iPhone did versus Windows CE devices beforehand.
Well then, good afternoon, good evening, good night, depending on where you are in the world listening to this episode of Agent Hour. I am your host, Gabi Weinberg. I run growth at Anchor. We're a browser infrastructure company, but that's not the point of the conversation today. My guest today is Jean-Denis, who's JDG for short, his street name. That's kind of how he goes. I'm not sure what he goes by in Town. We'll find out. But he kind of most maybe notably before Town was the CTO of Plaid, which is probably its own journey that we could grab a beer and talk about at some point in the future, scaling the engineers from 20 to 350 with like a 13 billion plus valuation. And today that would probably not be impressive because the goal would be to have as few engineers as possible. So I'm not sure but it's amazing what you did at Plaid in that era. Maybe you'll debate that as this goes. But basically, JDG is the mayor, not the CEO formally. I guess I'd be curious to see the incorporation docs of Town, which just fresh off a $55 million Series A by Andreessen Horowitz, plus another $18 million seed round, assuming those numbers are correct based on the internet. And Town AI is a new entrant in the world of agents, and it's kind of this perfect. I mean, we'll hear it from the man himself, but we're trying to jump in on the deep end to understand like how do you self-organize a company, and how do you let agents read email, Slack, documents, maintaining a high level of trust between the humans, maintaining, effective relationships, human relationships, but also moving into the world of, what does an agentic future look like? And what does it mean to have a townie at your beck and call, even if it's not necessarily an assistant, which I know is a piece of your thesis. So I guess, why don't we start with take it to the beginning of this conversation of, I made a snide comment about the size of an engineering organization of how is the organization of companies' information? And why is that the bottleneck you guys seem to be trying to solve at Town?
Yeah, I mean, first, thanks for having me, Gabi. I'm excited to be here and chat agents and the future of work and all of those things. So yeah, I'm excited about the chat. I think to answer your first question, you did make a snide comment. My initial thought when you made the comment is, well, in a way, the size of an engineering team or of an organization is driven by demand from users for more product, right? And for value to be delivered. So I have I'm not religious about whether teams need to be larger or smaller and whether AI will make them tend to be larger or smaller. I think in practice, just time will tell what happens there. The problem we're trying to solve both internally as a company that builds products and then externally, because we are an AI assistant for people the goal of our AI assistant is to help people do work. We try to take what I would say the toil and the more boring and operational aspects of what people do, and we try to help them automate it automatically, right? So the Town platform, the way it operates is you connect your email, your calendar, and other SaaS to it. And then what we do is a lot of pre-processing to understand you and your team and the work that you tend to do. And then we try to suggest areas where we can automate. So, if you think of most AI products, they're very powerful, but you have to tell them what you want them to do for you. And at Town, we're trying to say hey, AI should be able to figure out where it can help you so that you're just saying, yes, do that, yes, do this, and not actually yourself having to prompt your way towards automations. So that's the thesis for us. And to your point, it is, you can only automate work if you know what the human would have wanted to do, right? And so usually you need examples of the work from the past, and then you need to understand the signals that created the work. So I give you a really dumb and simple Silicon Valley example. I write an investor update every month. My assistant should notice that. It knows everything that's happened in the company for the last month. And so it should come back to me, on the first of the month or on, the 28th of the month and say like, hey, it's time to write that investor update. I've looked at the last three. Here's an outline of what I think you should talk about. Can you give me some input? And then I give it some input and I say like, hey, like write the update. And then it should write the update. And I should be able to do a couple final touches and then just send it to all my investors, right? And I shouldn't have to, in my mind, like all the time, like getting the metrics and what did we launch in the last month and like what has gone well, not well. That content already exists. It exists in the day-to-day of the company and my conversations with marketing and with sales and with my engineers. And so there's no reason why AI can't do that for you, but I don't want you to have to prompt there. I want it to suggest, and to suggest it needs to understand. So that's why we're really focused in how do you understand a person and how do you understand a company? Because we think those are the building blocks, for automation. Now, at the end of this, if we do this very well for a lot of people in a lot of roles, the way I think about it is when I put my investor update together, I don't add much value except the section that has asks of my investors. And even there, actually, AI should be more effective at being like, these investors can help you with this. And so the update that goes to them should have slightly different asks than those investors that can help with this other thing. And again, there, like the value is not unique. Like it's okay for AI to do this for me because it's not something that uniquely leverages what's in my brain. And so you want AI to do all that for me so I save a bunch of time, but then that time I use it to do higher value work. And so I probably end up hiring more people, but not people to do the toil, people to do higher value work over time. That's kind of the way I look at it.
I think I appreciate that you walking into this layer and like kind of addressing it head on. I think that we're hiring. It's not like is there a company except for Pulsia, if you know those guys.
Yes, I've met that founder. Yes.
I guess one guy. So like there's a certain brand that you can go with on that direction, but definitely the average company is still hiring for sure. I guess personally, like a more AI pilled person myself, how do you see, like, is Town holding the Notion database in lieu of Notion now for your company? Like, how does Town, what do I not have to see anymore, or that I don't have to like interface with if I'm using Town correctly, so to speak?
Yeah, we like philosophically, we have what I would call a Switzerland strategy, which is like, I am not actively ever trying to get you to go from Google Docs to Town Docs or from Notion to Town Docs or from Granola or Zoom to the Town equivalents. What I'm trying to do is take holistically the view of all the things that you do as an individual, and I'm trying to make it easier for you to get things done during the day. And so I'm totally okay. Like the Townie, which is how we call our assistants, are called Townies.
Yeah.
It's totally fine updating the Notion doc because it knows you'll check that out. It's like totally okay with that philosophically, and we're not trying to take you out of it. What we're finding is that for most of our users start to use Town as more the entry point to the questions that they have about the various things. So, I'll give you examples for us internally. We use a platform called Hex on top of our data warehouse to run product analytics and other analytics. And I almost never go to Hex, right? I have dashboards in Hex that I go to, but for most of my queries, I just ask my Townie, and my Townie knows to work with Hex. And my Townie actually has access to Hex's agent. So it's actually agent to agent to answer things. And the reason why that's better is because my Townie also is connected to our Google Docs where we write product specs. And so when I ask about how a feature is doing in production, it can look at the product spec, it can look at GitHub and see when we launched it. And then when it goes in Hex to put queries together, it's more effective. So in practice, I think we end up being more of the entry point over time, but I'm not going to build an agent that is focused on data analytics, and I'm not going to build data analytics charting and access control for data analytics. I'm super happy for Hex to do that. And it's the same for Notion. Like different employees at a company have access to different parts of Notion. You just connect whichever employee you connect Notion to Town, and we do the right thing, right? But I don't want to build the entire hierarchy that Notion has a wonderful product, right? I do assume end game, there might be some categories where people are like, well, Town is doing enough for me. I don't need this other SaaS, but I really view it as an entry point. Actually, my mental model for Town is we're building something more akin to a device or a browser, right?
Mm.
It's like, it is an entry point. You can use your browser to go to lots of websites. You can use your Town to interact with almost any SaaS or any other AI, and that's totally okay. That's totally okay with us.
And I guess it seems that the townie is retaining some sort of memory and knowledge of what you're doing. And so, I am not a former CTO of anything, but where does that live? Is there like a Supabase database you guys are running in the background for each customer? Like, what is like how much you want to get into that?
Yeah, totally. No, it's a really good question. And you'd asked it before, and I in my answer, I didn't get to it. So we believe in federated data as much as possible. So actually, like when you connect your email to Town, we don't go and download all your emails and re-index them, right? We use Gmail search engine mostly. When you connect Notion, we don't create a search index on top of all the Notion data. And the reason why is like we don't, first of all, from a privacy perspective, like I don't love the idea of having another copy of someone's data, and our users don't, right? They want us to be like more minimal in that respect. And then number two, I actually don't need all the information. I need pointers to the information. So what Town builds, and in the product, it looks like a wiki, but there's a layer beneath it. It's a little more of a graph database. And then there's also a search index. We build like a high level index that tells you roughly where to find things, but we don't copy the things. So like an example, like Town will know this week, what are your 5 best projects that Gabi is working on? And he'll say like, hey, there's emails from these people about it roughly, and there's a bunch of stuff on Notion about it. But so then when you do a query about something, like you're like, hey, help me plan next week. Well, then it's like, well, what projects do you have this week? And knows that. And then it'll be like, let me search email to find how the projects have been going. Let me search Notion to see if there are any updates to the doc. And then it'll search and look at the content from those third-party places. And then from that, it can start to put an agenda for the next week. So we have an index like pointers into the data, and it's only at a high level so that you can, it's a high level map. It's like the zoomed out version of the map where you're like, oh, there's LA and there's San Francisco and there's New York and these are the big highways. It knows that. And then after that, it goes federated into the various products to do the more detailed work. And we like that approach has worked really well for us. There's a couple of services where I would say their search functionality is just terabad. It's just really bad. Right. And so there we have considered like, hey, should we re-index partially with more level of detail? Because our users really want us to work well with this other product, but it just has made it very, very difficult to work. And the way I look at that, by the way, is like stepping back, not about Town. Services, whether they're AI or SaaS, that don't offer good building blocks around like search, I think are going to be in trouble because agents then won't be able to work well with them. And so the users will realize that and will move to equivalent products that are good at those things.
Right. So, and even if it's subliminal, meaning like if you don't even know what a search, oh man, I lost you. If you don't know what if you don't know what a search, vector database is, whatever database you're using, you still would experience that lossiness and like, what the heck? Like, I can't get my, whatever the thing is. Who are the worst offenders?
I'm not going to name names, but there's
that's a different podcast. After 5.
There's definitely like the way it looks to us is some user will be like, hey, why couldn't Town found this document that existed, and we're like, we look at it, we're like, hey, listen, like that service is searched really bad. And then we're like, well, our user doesn't care about that. How do we get around it, right?
Your excuse is not the thing that makes a difference for them.
Yeah. No one cares about it. But there's product categories that are more closed or open than others vis-a-vis letting agents be powerful on top of them. Like Hex is an example of a company that makes it really easy to build a great agentic product on top of their experience.
Yeah, no, I mean, that makes a lot of sense. And I guess maybe to the Town, power user, I mean, you have this Teams functionality that's going live. And so that's clearly a company base, but there's also probably a prosumer use case. Like, what is like the beachhead into a new organization? And then how does it like expand? Like, is it Gabi's doing it and then everyone else wants to adopt because it's so dope? Or like, what is that? How are you typically seeing the adoption curve emerge?
Yeah, I mean, you're a growth guy. So our growth story is I would say a prosumer PLG motion. Mm-hmm. Where we acquire users that are people who tend to have a tinker kind of gene and tend to self-select into technology. So, but a lot of our users are mainstream users that have kind of that DNA, and they will start to use it for themselves. They'll connect their email and they'll start to see value. And then pretty quickly what happens is they talk about it either with other people in their personal life or in their professional life. And at some point in that journey, there'll be a company where it goes from 1 seat to 5 seats to 10 seats. And then someone inside will be like, okay, well, we're spending, $500 or $1,000 a month here, whatever the number is. And we should have a sales conversation and decide like how we do a broader deployment. We're very like, I think we're pretty early in the journey. Like it's going extremely well, but I would say, our ICP tends to be people where email and calendar is extremely valuable in their job. So sales, BD, recruiting, founders, small business owners, finance teams, these are all roles where a lot happens in email and calendar. And so our product does very well in those use cases. And so those folks tend to adopt. And then we have a few integrations, like we have a Slack integration where those folks are using Town in Slack. And then other people at the company are like, what is this thing? And then,
Yeah.
and then they want to use it and they sign up. And so we have like some virality loops that look like that. And then on the network effects front, the Teams product's not fully launched, but it's getting there. Everything we talked about understanding one person, there's the understanding the company and making the product better if you understand the company. And so we're building network effects where if multiple people in an org or a company are on the product, it just is better for everybody. So that's the most of the monetization journey. But just to put in perspective, only about 40% of our revenue is Teams and 60% is consumer and prosumer, right? And the market is large, and I view it, this is, your audience is a technical audience, but I think the real opportunity is like mainstream people that are vastly underserved by technology to build a product that is simple, very powerful,
Totally.
but a simple product that is accessible to them. So, I always use these examples. People make fun of me at the company. They like want me to stop talking about electricians and plumbers, but there
No, I
are,
love those guys. They're the only
no,
ones who will be left after the apocalypse anyways.
100%. That's the way I look at it too. Like if I can't monetize them, then we're shit out of luck. But
They're like
I
the
don't believe,
cockroaches of professional class in this point.
I don't agree with that. But no, but
But I don't mean
it's
like in terms of like what's
yeah,
scary,
yeah.
but like they're going to last forever. Like we're going to need people to fix our toilets.
There's a lot of but there's a lot of jobs where you don't think of them as knowledge workers, but the reality is they are successful because they are good at managing calendars
Mm-hmm.
and managing email. And like it's funny because you think of a plumber and electrician as someone that fixes a thing that's broken, but actually the place where they make money is working for GCs to build houses, to do like bigger work. And
Sure.
that work is it's all calendar and email. Like all the suppliers on an
Yes.
email.
Yes.
Like you have to be on time. You have to know which days you're doing what. If you're doing the wrong things on the wrong days, like, it's bad. So those are, for us, the opportunity by focusing on email and calendars, like we can bring so much value to a lot of mid-market and SMB that's mainstream. And eventually, like there's more there, but that's a huge slice of the market that's totally underserved today by AI.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I would agree. I mean, just like you see, I think honestly, even like your sales users use case makes a ton of sense. Like chat is like, it's a lot. Like I keep trying to coach people and, well, you could set up a routine in Claude. And you're like, the hell is that? Like, I mean, it's just steps, like it works. It's great. I can't make a cron job, but I can make a routine. But like, there's still like many layers above that people just don't even want to do. I don't want to have to just like make it work.
And one of my favorite quotes from a user was like, it was like they were talking about their job and they were like, look, like I'm a painter. I like to paint. I don't want to learn how to code. Like we were talking about Lovable, like we were talking about like vibe coding. They're like, I don't want to learn how to code. Like if I wanted to code, I would have studied computers, right? It's not what I want to do. Like I love this other thing. I like to do this other thing. And everyone's trying to push me vibe coding and I just don't want to do it. And I think, even our product, I think is still too complicated, competitors, please don't use that quote. But, I think our product's too complicated. We try to not expose routines and skills. We try to like hide it as much as possible, but it still bubbles up, and, I can hear myself telling user like, oh, well, you could just create a routine for that. And they're like, a routine? They're like,
Right, but
no, they
it
just want to
happens
say
every
like,
day.
yeah, can you do that for me every day? That's what they want, those words. They want to tell their agent, like, hey, can you just do that every day? Can you do it every week? Hey, can you, when this is relevant, can you let me know? They don't care in the
Right.
background. Like, if it's relevant, means you run something daily or hourly or every minute or every week. They don't care. They want to know when the thing has changed, right?
For sure. Well,
And
I think that they maybe kind of relatedly, you touched on this a little bit with the search use case, some of the pain points of like expanding the surface area of town. Like, what are like the technical hurdles you feel that are in the next, I don't know, 3 to 6 months of like, oh man, if we had that figured out, that would be an unlock for our users. Like, what is your current like thinking about that, like strategically?
yeah, two things pop to mind. One of them is like private data sets or like private integrations. So there's a lot of things like travel, or when people do research for recruiting or on competitors or like databases of like local businesses. There's a lot of this stuff which I would say it's in the private data set universe where you don't, Google doesn't have it, Exa and Parallel and the providers don't have it. So for us, I think there's an opportunity to make those private data sets part of what someone has access to with their agent. And that makes them just much, much better. And then the other one is, and this one's tougher because there's a UX kind of challenge there, but a lot of users, they want to like sometimes book movie tickets or like organize a dinner with clients or do things that you need like credit cards and you need computer use to get done. And the thing about computer use and credit cards is when it works, it's incredible. But we're still in a world where it doesn't work quite enough. And so for the mainstream person, it's like kind of disconcerting when it doesn't work because it works once. So in their head, it's like, oh, AI
Yeah.
can do this for me. And then they're like, the next time it like doesn't work. And they're like,
Yeah.
yo, I depended on you to make
Yep.
this happen. And now you're telling me, blah, blah, blah. Like LinkedIn is blocking, they don't care that LinkedIn is like bot
What a
detection is
shock.
blocked.
LinkedIn is blocking your
Yeah.
login
Well,
to the system to send the message. Yeah, sure.
those guys, I mean, they're sitting on diamonds and they just don't, I'm like, I'm willing to pay for the diamonds, yo. I will pay
Oh,
for your
man,
diamonds,
same.
LinkedIn. Your API could be very expensive, LinkedIn. My users would pay for it. I would pay for it, but they're not ready to do that. So I think those like computer use and private data sets are two things. And then the final one for me is like voice is coming. I don't think we have this little feature in our app where you can just press this little button and then you can just talk to your system, but it doesn't talk back. So you could say, like, I could pull it up right now. I could be like, hey, add this to my to-do list, blah, blah, blah. Or like, hey, I'm about to walk into a customer meeting. Can you take this presentation that I did 2 weeks ago for this other customer and like tweak it for this customer and like so I can present it in 5 minutes? And it can do those things. It's like great, but it doesn't speak in the other direction. And there's this feature. I give you an example of a feature that I'm like pretty excited about. I want to be like, hey, like I wake up in the morning, like, hey, what emails have come in? And it lists like that are important. It lists 5 emails. I'm like, hey, can you read that one to me? And it reads it. I'm like, garbage. You can, and then it reads another one. It's like, okay, draft a reply that says no to that and go through like this little more like interactive version of voice on top of your data. I'm extremely excited about that. It's just the latency is just nowhere near there. Meaning, like as a human, you want to be able to go really fast and have this stuff.
Sure.
And on the other side, the LLMs, they can do all of it now. They can do all of the things, but you're going to be waiting like 35 seconds, we're like, do, 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 do,
Yeah,
do,
no,
do,
it's
do,
impossible.
do. And so I'm very excited about that. I think there's probably architectures with like multiple layers of LLMs where you can like make it feel snappy to the user with enough background processing. So the tech isn't quite there, but someone will figure out, like someone will come out with that experience a month before everyone else. And for a month, they're just going to have the vibe.
Yeah.
And, I think as a small company, we are very good at many things that we do, but it's tough for us to operate on the frontier of things like voice right now. Cause it's just like, you need to be at the frontier to have access to that stuff. So.
For sure. Well, the thing that I imagine it's a talking point in many of your conversations, but I wonder if I can land it in a little more, maybe more interesting. You'll decide. You decided your title will be mayor of town. So, okay, there's a simple read. I have a rabbinic training. So I'm spend all my first 10, 20 years of my life, 30 years of my life reading Jewish texts. So, and I still do it. So you get a mayor of the town. That's clever. But how do you think like that relationship with the town and also, of course, the citizens of the town implies or affects the way you think about your leadership?
Oh, wow. Yeah, I am really CEO. I'm co-founder
You
and
are? They don't have it
CEO.
on the thing? You call yourself the
Yeah,
mayor of the town, so just a branding
yeah.
thing. That was a lame.
It's- Yeah, it is. No, sorry, Gabi. It is lame. No, it is. It is a branding thing. Some of our users, they're like, hey, so I have a townie in town, and my coworkers also have townies. Like, how do our townies interact in the town? And I'm like, yes, they do interact in the town. That feature's coming. Like, wait for it. I'm like, but is it a town? Is it a corporation? Do you have like, are you
Uh-huh.
voting? Is anyone voting? I'm mayor. My team likes to joke that they can vote me out, and I'm like, hi, friends. Let me tell
Have
you
you looked
about
at the
capitalism
term
and
sheet?
and the way this works. I don't think you can vote me out. But yeah, I think the mayor itself is as a joke. I think to your point, there's a really open question about how AIs relate to humans over time and what that looks like. And it's a sociological question more than, and one that will be played out in the universe of human beings and this technology interacting. And some people are like, have opinions about the future and they try to make the future happen. And I have some of those opinions, but I think what is the right relationship between humans and AI? The only thing I care about is that AIs are always accountable to a human. At the end of the day, I want to know which human throat has caused the bad or the good thing to happen. Who
Mm,
the economics of the AI, they come back to a human or a corporation that is owned and controlled by humans. Like that is extremely important to me. It is technology to serve us and we cannot let it get away from us. But beyond that, whether you have one agent, a million agents, how the agents relate to each other, and so I'm mayor of town because I'm, the CEO of this company and it's a cute title, but I don't have that strong opinions beyond that. And then for my team internally, we're building software. We're tech company, so we have all of the things that you would expect tech company. We have designers and we have engineers and we have PMs. We have a great sales team. We have enablement, right? We have finance. We have recruiting. All the things. I mean, I'd like to think that one of the magics behind our product is that every employee here at some point or other has built something on town that makes the product better. And I
mm,
really believe that in this formative stage of a technology, you need to tap into humans' desire to solve their own problems and their own creativity, even as we build the product, right? So we encourage that a lot. And, that the way in which that is a little bit like a mayor is like a mayor doesn't get to tell all the citizens of the city how to live. You know what I mean? It's like
sure,
that's not the job of the mayor.
sure.
I do view my role towards the team as I do try to provide direction, but we're trying to hire a group of folks who are very creative. And every question you've asked me, everyone on my team, they think about this stuff at a level of depth that is at least equal to mine. And that is, I think, the magic in our current stage as a business. We're just 25 people right now of our ability to build something great.
That's awesome. No, I thank you for playing with my tongue in cheek. I mean, it's a serious question that wasn't as serious to you initially, but you took it very seriously and you gave a great answer. So I appreciate that.
Unfortunately, I'm a serious dude. I went to law school where, some of the best students when I went to law school, one of the best students actually, his training has been as a rabbi, and let me tell you, that dude could analyze text like nobody's business. I mean, and reading the text in all the ways that you could imagine, it was pretty incredible. Because when you go to law school, you want to be a lawyer, but you have to learn how to take words and really dissect them in all the directions possible, right? Because sometimes the law is clear, but often it's not. And so it's like, how good can you argue about what it actually meant by these words that are ambiguous? And if you've studied to be a rabbi, that is literally, so this person, we were all like beginners,
Yeah.
and then this dude was like, yo, he's like a super expert, right? And running circles around us
Like
for
jumps
the
into the
first
water
couple of
like a
years.
triple spin flip move. I was like,
Exactly.
so how do we dive again? Yeah, no, that's very, I did notice that in your bio. That was on my list of things to maybe talk about at some point. But I guess to kind of, wrap up and hopefully this will come out soon enough that we'll be able to kind of be in the zeitgeist, because that's really what it's all about. But when it comes to, the innovation, you have your Claude, you have your OpenAI, you have your Grok bots kind of jumping onto the scene, and you're obviously staying the course. But as with the CEO vision or the mayor vision, what do you feel like is the way you think about it to kind of plug on? It could be hard at times, I imagine, but what are the ways you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, it's brutal out there. It's brutal. I mean, it's moving so fast. And I've been in Silicon Valley or in tech for a long time. And so I remember times when if you had competitive advantage, like from a product perspective, it would take 12 months for someone to copy you, right? So they would copy you, but at least you had 12 months for your next move. And so look, the answer for you is they're companies whose shape is the TAM's not that big, so you're going to have a few competitors. I
Sure.
think town and like any, whether it's like Cowork or, like the next version of Codex or, it's Grokbot or, whatever, whoever you want to put in the list that are in this world of we're trying to build an AI that more and more people can use. The TAM is immeasurable. It's just gigantic. So the couple of things I look at. First, the real challenge is how do you get everybody to be able to use this technology? Not Grokbot's fantastic. It's very power user focused, right? And I mean, just look at the price point, right? It's like $300, right? And it's like a full computer, and people are like, I use Grokbot to run my 7 Claudes, and I'm just like, okay, mainstream users don't. They're not there. They're not even. You're not. It's not even a zip code. They're not even on the same continent. They may not be on the same planet that you're talking about. So one thing is what is the prize? The prize is 1 billion knowledge workers, and the kind of simplicity that you have to get to and the ease of understanding of the product. It's a little bit like what the iPhone did versus Windows CE devices beforehand. You got to bridge that gap. No one's built a BlackBerry yet. We're still way before. So that's like the prize is huge.
Mm-hmm.
And the real problem is around simplicity and power combined in a consumer grade experience. Everyone's very far from that. We're very far from that. So that's one thing. The second thing is when a market is huge, there are ways to differentiate that have to do with having a feel or a point of view about the universe and not about technical capability. So in the US, there's a social network called Snapchat, and it has a strong opinion that the messages disappear, and it has a really kind of quirky UI, and it's not for everyone. I mean, that company is maybe a 50th of the size or a 25th of the size of Facebook, but it's still a really big business because they've taken their strong opinion, and there's some people for whom it really resonates. And so I look at the market and I'm like, and we have these characters, the townies, and we feel very strongly it's a one-to-one relationship between an AI and a human, right? And we have these strong points of view about the interaction model, about our brand, and we think for some people it will super resonate, and that is our opportunity. And we will listen to those kinds of users, and we will see where it pulls us. And it may not. I mean, I hope it pulls us into a product that's used by 500 million people. But I think if it pulls us into a product that's used by 50 to 100 million people, I'm totally fine, right? And I don't think this is a winner takes all kind of market at the end of the day. And then the third thing for you, and I've said this a few times, but I think it's important, is no one has figured out network effects of AI. And I don't think the competitive edge for mainstream AI products, I don't think it's about capabilities. So I don't think it's about who's first to have voice, right? It's nice to be first to have voice because it gives you some growth, but everyone will have voice. Everyone will have computer use, right? Everyone will have credit cards. Everyone will have private data sets. Everyone will have all the things. But whoever figures out first how you can make a group of people more effective with AI, you can make a company more effective because everyone's on the same platform. That is a more interesting, I think, shaped business. And so, it's like we are in the in social network terms, no one's even built MySpace right now for AIs, right? These are all single user products. And so, I think you could be a new entrant and you could build Facebook. You could be or Instagram or WhatsApp or TikTok. There are many shapes to what this will look like. And I think that is probably the biggest opportunity to build a moat around this kind of a company.
Super cool. JDG.
When is this coming out? When is this podcast
now
going?
I gotta move it. I gotta move it up. I don't know. Tomorrow. I don't know. To get it by Monday. We'll get it. Should get it out by Monday?
If you were holding it for a couple of weeks, I think there's things that are happening in the universe.
It'll be stale. No, we'll get it. I'll get it for Monday. That's fine. I'll sit on the editor. That'd be with pleasure. Let's do 1 minute on overrated, underrated, just to for the audience.
So
Is that
if
okay?
I've said if something is overrated or underrated. Okay.
Yeah, you just have to, you can respond in one word, overrated, underrated. You don't have to give any answer, any explanation. This is like the least law school type of experience. And if you want to say more, you can, but it's, I know we're on a timeline. Okay. So Notion or wikis as company memory, overrated or underrated?
Underrated.
Okay. I think you'll appreciate this. Agents with write access to email and calendar, overrated or underrated?
Underrated.
Okay. Personal AI assistants versus company-wide AI assistants.
Personal.
Okay. And the last one, the enterprise AI assistant hype in 2026. Overrated or underrated?
Way overrated. Totally super overrated. I can tell you how I think about this one. It's like if you're AI pilled, like if you really believe that we're like in the singularity, the entire thesis behind FDs going to enterprises to build custom AI systems, it just doesn't make any sense. Because if you're really AGI pilled, you got to believe that AI will be better at adapting systems to companies. So it's like it's like a temporary bet. It's like a short-term bet, but all the FDs will be replaced by AI. If you're really if you're like singularity mindset. So I find it interesting because it's like the most AGI-ish companies are building the largest consulting arms to go into the largest companies to like build custom AI. And, the way I look at that is like, that is a short term, makes a ton of sense. Right. But I have strong belief that the enterprise is very ill equipped to benefit from AI anywhere close to its potential. I think there's like basically 15 years plus of thinking around, especially like privacy, how data is used within the enterprise, how custom software, has to be adapted to individual people. That leads you to what I would call domain specific solutions, like vertical solutions that have very narrow like data apertures.
Sure.
And AI benefits from horizontal and very wide data apertures. And so putting FDEs that are like customizing for like one role, that's just going to get rolled over more horizontal solutions. Right. So I'm excited because I think I'm going to go, I think already I'm doing it, but I think we're going to go fish that stuff for like, years and just roll them over.
Sounds good to me. Awesome. JDG, where can people find you on the interwebs? What's the best place to track you down?
Well, I'd love for no one to know who I am and to not have any web presence. It's like I have a good friend who doesn't even have a LinkedIn and he's very successful. And he's like, there's one article written about him online and I love that human being. But I think I'm like Jay Greze maybe on the Twitter, the X. The X.
We can put it on. Yeah. I won't tell anybody you said Twitter. No,
you find me, I'm an old person. And so the whole thing, the whole socials, it's tough for me, but I do my best to be available and I do love our customers. So if you're a user and you have feedback, send it to me. That is how we met. How we met.
That's right. Point. That's right.
Yeah.
Well, let me cut the tape. Thank you I can begin. Thank you. Thanks so much, JDG, for joining on Agent Hour, and we look forward to launching this soon.
Thanks for having me.